Listen closely. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally shift how you see every relationship, romantic, platonic, professional, that left you starving for genuine connection. Welcome back to this space where we dissect the shadow side of human nature, where we pull apart the beautiful lies we tell ourselves about why people hold us at arm's length. If you're new here, you've stumbled into the perfect moment of reckoning. Today's episode 10. They were never emotionally unavailable, they just never intended to go deep. And here's the subtitle that will haunt you. Being unavailable isn't a condition, it's a strategy. Picture this scene. It could be with a romantic partner, a friend you thought would go deeper, even a family member or colleague. You've known them for months, maybe years. You're ready to move past the surface, to enter that sacred space where humans truly see each other. So you try. You share something real. Your fear of becoming your parents. That recurring dream that wakes you at 3 a.m. The real reason you left your last job. What happens? They deflect with humor. They suddenly need to check their phone. They pivot to safer territory, sports, weather, work gossip, anything but the depths you're offering. Or they give you that look, that subtle withdrawal that says, "We don't do that here." So your mind constructs a narrative. They're emotionally unavailable. Past trauma makes them guarded. They need more time to trust. If I just create the perfect safe space, they'll eventually open up. Stop. Here's the truth that will burn as it liberates you. They weren't broken. They weren't incapable. They were selective. And you weren't selected for the inner circle. I know that stings. Sit with it anyway. Because this revelation will save you years of trying to earn something that was never on the table. I come to you with a perspective forged in both feminine intuition and masculine analysis. A mind trained in Jung's depths, sharpened by existential philosophy, and no longer willing to dress harsh truths in comfortable lies. This isn't about gender. It's about the universal human tendency to mistake strategic withholding for emotional dysfunction. Let's dissect this. There's a canyon between capacity and willingness. Capacity is the depth of someone's emotional reservoir, built through experience, shadow work, therapy, life's trials. Jung would call it individuation. The integration of all aspects of the psyche into a functioning whole. But willingness, that's the choice to share that depth with you, specifically. It's not about the size of their emotional vault. It's about whether you're on the access list. Here's where it gets darkly fascinating. The people we label emotionally unavailable are usually drowning in emotional depth. They're just not sharing the ocean with you. Observe them like an anthropologist. With their childhood friend, they'll process existential dread for hours over whiskey. With their passion, their startup, their art, their cause, they're completely vulnerable. All in. With certain family members, emotions flow unguarded, natural as breathing. In their journal or therapy session, they're exploring caverns of feeling you didn't know existed. Then, months or years after you part ways, you witness them with someone new. Could be a romantic partner, could be a new friend or business partner. And they're writing soliloquies about connection, posting quotes about finally being seen and understood. They had the capacity all along. They just didn't allocate it to you. Jung spoke of the persona, that carefully curated mask we present to the world. Beneath it lies the authentic self, the shadow, the unconscious depths. Here's what most people don't understand. We don't wear one mask. We have an entire wardrobe of them. And some people have already decided which mask you get to see, while others get the real face. With you, they kept the mask firmly in place. They gave you the press release while someone else got the autobiography. We've romanticized emotional unavailability across all relationship types. In friendships, we think we can earn our way to best friend status through loyalty and time. In families, we believe we can prove ourselves worthy of real conversations beyond holiday pleasantries. In professional relationships, we imagine that perfect performance will grant us access to genuine mentorship. Let me be devastatingly clear. You're not a rehabilitation center for closed hearts. You're not a practice ground for someone learning to feel. They're not broken. They're selective. And that selectivity is a choice, not a condition. The term emotionally unavailable has become our collective comfort blanket, protecting us from a colder truth. They've done the calculation of vulnerability with you, and you didn't make the cut. Let me share a pattern I've observed across every type of human connection. Take Sam. Any gender, any age, any context. Sam spends significant time with Jordan. Could be dating, could be friends, could be collaborating on a project. Jordan presents as the classic emotionally unavailable type, deflects meaningful conversations, uses humor as armor, literally says things like, "I don't do feelings," or "let's keep things light." Sam becomes the perfect student of patience, creates safe spaces, never pushes. Thanks. If I just prove I'm trustworthy enough, if I show them it's safe, they'll open up. Months or years of emotional crumbs, surface-level connection while Sam's soul starves for authenticity. They part ways. Sam heals, grows, moves on. Later, through the grapevine or social media, Sam discovers Jordan in a new configuration. New relationship, new friendship, new business partnership. Sharing profound vulnerability, writing paragraphs about deep connection, crediting this new person with changing everything. Here's what Sam needs to understand. That new person didn't perform magic. Jordan simply chose to go deep with them. Jordan had already categorized Sam as surface level only. Not maliciously, but definitively. This pattern transcends all boundaries: age, gender, culture, relationship type. It's rooted in power dynamics, in the dance between those who withhold and those who pursue, between those who control intimacy and those who hunger for it. The shadow work begins when you realize you've been auditioning for a role that was never available, when you see that your patience wasn't noble. It was you abandoning your own needs for someone who'd already decided your place in their hierarchy of intimacy. The question isn't, how can I get them to open up? The question is, why am I accepting crumbs from someone who's giving feasts elsewhere? That shift, that's where your revolution begins. Now we descend into the shadow, that psychological underground where patterns reveal themselves and real freedom becomes possible. If you missed part 1, go back. We exposed how emotional unavailability is actually selective vulnerability, a strategic choice disguised as dysfunction. Now we excavate why you fell for it, and more crucially, how to break free. There's a belief system operating in your unconscious, universal across all humans, that whispers, if I could just be better, smarter, more successful, more understanding, less demanding, then they would let me in. This isn't just a thought. It's programming, carved into your psyche by early experiences where acceptance felt conditional, where you learned that belonging required perfect performance. Here's the shadow work nobody wants to face. You cannot earn emotional depth from someone. There's no amount of patience, achievement, or flawless understanding that will unlock someone who has already assigned you to the shallow end. Full stop. Feel that discomfort. Notice how it challenges everything you believed about human connection being something you could win through persistence. The fantasy that, if only I had been different, is your ego's desperate grab for control. Because if you did something wrong, then theoretically you could do it right next time. But what if, and here's the existential terror, your performance was irrelevant? What if you could have been absolutely perfect, and they still would have kept you at arm's length? Jung understood that we project our unlived potential onto others. That person you're trying to unlock, They're carrying your projection of what connection could be, should be, if only you could find the right combination. Let me map the universal cycle so you can recognize it faster. Phase 1. The glimpse. You catch flashes of their depth during a crisis, after a few drinks, in that unguarded moment at 2 a.m. Your psyche latches onto these glimpses as proof that depth exists. See? It's there. I just need to create the right conditions. Phase 2. The investment. You become an emotional archaeologist, carefully excavating without forcing. In friendships, you're always available, always listening. In work relationships, you go above and beyond. In family dynamics, you're the one who keeps trying to have real conversations. You tell yourself, you're building trust. Phase 3. Diminishing returns. Your vulnerability increases while theirs plateaus or retreats. You're doing all the emotional labor, initiating meaningful conversations, remembering important details, creating space for depth while they offer nothing but surface. Phase 4. The revelation. You discover they're capable of extraordinary depth, just not with you. They're having philosophical debates with their barista. They're sharing their deepest fears with a new colleague. They're completely open with someone they just met at a conference. Phase 5. The spiral. You turn the interrogation inward. What did I do wrong? How could I have been different? You replay every interaction, searching for the moment you could have changed the outcome. Recognize this pattern? It's universal. It's the architecture of self-abandonment. Here's where we merge Jungian shadow work with Stoic philosophy. The shadow isn't just our repressed darkness, it's also our repressed power. And right now, your shadow is holding the part of you that knows how to say, this isn't enough for me. The Stoics had it right. Focus only on what's within your control. You cannot control someone else's willingness to go deep with you, but you can control how quickly you recognize selective vulnerability and how swiftly you extract yourself from dynamics that starve your soul. Let's talk about the inner knowing, that intuitive part that transcends gender, that exists in every human who hasn't completely disconnected from their instincts. It's been screaming at you this whole time. Every deflected question, every forgotten important detail, every surface-level response to your depth. It knew, but you silenced it with stories about patience, about unconditional love, about earning trust, concepts that have been weaponized against your discernment. Here's what genuine connection actually looks like. Not perfect, but real. They bring depth voluntarily. Your comment reminded me of something I've been wrestling with. They share without excavation. The vulnerability flows both ways, like a dance where partners take turns leading, not one person always pursuing while the other retreats. They show genuine curiosity about your inner world. They remember not just facts, but feelings. They can sit with discomfort instead of deflecting. They're consistently available, not perfect, but present. This isn't fantasy. It requires work from both people. But it's collaborative work, not a solo mission where you're trying to break into someone's vault while they keep changing the combination. In our modern landscape, dating apps, social media, professional networking, this dynamic has intensified to absurd proportions. Profiles and presentations proclaim desires for authentic connection and real relationships, while the people behind them are collecting surface-level interactions like trophies. They'll perform intimacy to keep you engaged, then retreat when you reciprocate, claiming you're too intense or moving too fast. They're not broken, they're selective, and they're saving their depth for someone they haven't met yet while using you as a placeholder. The red flags are visible from day one if you stop painting them green with hope. Watch for depth that only emerges in crisis, deflection disguised as humor, conversations that always return to safe topics. The push-pull dynamic, intense closeness followed by sudden distance. Declarations like, I'm not good with emotions, or I like to keep things light. Believe them. They're telling you exactly where you rank. But also watch for green flags, unprompted vulnerability, consistent emotional availability, questions that go deeper, comfort with uncomfortable conversations, the ability to hold space for complexity. The revolution begins when you stop asking, how can I get them to open up? And start asking, is what they're offering enough for me? That's not giving up on connection. That's refusing to accept its simulation. Here we reach the summit, where all threads weave into a truth sharp enough to cut through years of self-deception. We've exposed the lie, mapped the pattern. Now we revolutionize how you choose and allow yourself to be chosen, because this isn't just personal. This is about dismantling an entire system that taught you to audition for authentic connection. Look at the broader landscape. We've been culturally programmed for generations. Some of us learned that our role is to patiently coax depth from others, to be emotional miners extracting gold from reluctant mountains. Others learned that emotional withholding is power, that vulnerability should be rationed like a scarce resource only to those who've proven themselves. This creates a toxic ecosystem: exhaustion for those doing the emotional labor, entitlement for those withholding. It's a marketplace where authenticity becomes currency, and some people are always overextending, while others hoard wealth they never intend to spend. But here's the dark irony. Those withholding depth from you aren't saving it for no one. They're saving it for someone they've pre-qualified as worthy from the first interaction. Often, it's the person whose absence they fear, not whose presence they take for granted. It's the secure one who won't tolerate crumbs, not the anxious one offering endless patience. See the pattern? They give depth to those who won't accept less. They stay surface with those who prove they'll accept anything. Your revolution begins the moment you realize you've been teaching people how little you require. Jung talked about individuation, becoming whole by integrating all parts of the self. When someone maintains their persona with you while sharing their integrated self with others, they're showing you exactly where you stand in their psychological landscape. You're not in the inner sanctum, you're in the waiting room, and your appointment will never come. Let me paint you a picture of what chosen depth looks like, not earned, but freely given. They bring up meaningful topics without prompting. I've been thinking about what you said about purpose. Can we explore that? They share their shadow voluntarily, their struggles, their growth, their questions, not the sanitized versions. The flow is reciprocal, like breathing, natural, necessary, mutual. They maintain consistency regardless of circumstances. Not perfect presence, but reliable depth. Their availability doesn't fluctuate based on their mood, their options, or external factors. They can hold discomfort without deflecting, sit in difficult emotions without running. They're genuinely curious about your inner world, your thoughts on existence, your relationship with fear, your unpopular opinions. They remember not just what you said, but the context, the feeling, the significance. These people exist across every type of relationship, but you'll never find them while you're busy trying to convert the emotionally selective. The existential philosophers understood something crucial. We create our reality through our choices. Every moment you spend trying to earn depth from someone who's already categorized you as surface level is a moment you're not available for someone who would choose you for their depths from the beginning. Here's your practical revolution. First, stop interpreting selective vulnerability as a wound you can heal. It's a choice, and it's data. Process it accordingly. Second, recognize the pattern early. If depth only emerges in crisis, that's information. If they consistently deflect meaningful conversation, that's intelligence. If they remember facts but forget feelings, that's your map. You know exactly where you are, surface level. The only question is whether you'll accept that position. Third, implement what I call the reciprocity principle. Match their emotional investment, don't exceed it. If they're giving you surface, give them surface. Save your depths for those who've demonstrated capacity and willingness. This is where your integrated self emerges, the intuitive part that recognizes withholding, that tastes the selective nature of their engagement, the logical part that implements boundaries, that refuses to audition for what should be freely given. Together, they create new criteria. I choose people who choose me wholly from the beginning. This isn't about perfection. Someone struggling with vulnerability but actively working on it, sharing that struggle with you, bringing you into their process. That's different from someone perfectly capable of vulnerability who's decided you don't qualify for it. The Stoics taught that we suffer more in imagination than reality. All those hours you spend strategizing how to unlock someone's depth, that's suffering twice. Once in the rejection of intimacy, again in the fantasy of earning it. Your energy is finite. Every moment you spend trying to go deep with someone who's assigned you to the shallows is a moment stolen from someone who's looking for exactly your kind of depth. Write this down. Make it your manifesto. I am not auditioning for access to someone's inner world. I am selecting connections with people who recognize me as depth-worthy from our first meaningful interaction. They were never emotionally unavailable. They were selective investors, and they invested elsewhere. This isn't your failure. It's your freedom. It's the universe showing you clearly who's not for you, creating space for who is. The person who will choose you for their depths, in friendship, in love, in collaboration, won't make you work for it. They'll bring vulnerability like a gift to your first real conversation, share their questions alongside their answers, build intimacy with you rather than despite you. You'll recognize them by how natural it feels. Not effortless, but unforced. Like finding someone who speaks your native language after years of translation. Stop romanticizing the closed off. Stop fetishizing the emotional project. Stop believing that connection means earning access through perfect performance. The revolution isn't just personal, it's collective. Every time one of us refuses to accept selective vulnerability, we reshape the entire dynamic. We declare that depth isn't a prize to be won, but a foundation to be shared. Your inner knowing already recognizes who's withholding. Your integrated self already knows when to walk away. Your shadow holds all the power you've been giving away to people who never intended to reciprocate. The question isn't whether they're capable of depth, it's whether they're choosing to share it with you. And if they're not, that's not your puzzle to solve. That's your signal to leave. The revolution begins the moment you stop trying to earn what should be freely given. It begins when you choose yourself as powerfully as you've been choosing others. It begins now. Go find the ones who've been looking for exactly your kind of depth all along. They exist in every sphere. Friendship, romance, family, work. They're waiting for someone who won't accept their shallows either. Remember, in the grand theatre of human connection, you deserve a co-star, not an audience member watching you perform your heart out for their casual entertainment. Choose accordingly. The depths await.